Hello and welcome back. In the last section, we did a interesting job of putting our APIs on the cloud server, right? And on Heroku, essentially. Now we can actually access our APIs on Heroku cloud provider, okay? And interestingly, we can also now go back to our UI and then reference these APIs, all right? And that's going to be the crux of our discussion going forwards in the next few lectures, okay? So before we move forward, I just want to give another demo of the uploading of the dishes so that in case it's not completely registered in our minds, and that's going to essentially jog our memories here. Let's go over to Postman because it requires an image, and the image string or the basics for image string is generally pretty long. I decided to use the Postman and go ahead and upload the dish data. Okay, so this is our URL that we are using for dishes creation, and this is going to be a post. And let's provide the API here, the body here, and we have some headers here as well. Provided content type is application JSON and accept as application JSON as well. Head over to the body. I'm going to get rid of this stuff. This is something that I created before, okay, out of band. And let's see what we can create here. I'm going to go ahead and provide the name and the description and the price and everything here. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to create a vegetarian thigh, which is going to be of category of North Indian, and the description obviously something that I thought was right. I gave it. Let's go ahead and get the data for the image here. Okay, so I'm going to open a new site here, and that's going to be called, that's going to be our conversion for the image to the base 64. Okay, this is the image that this is the image converter that I'm talking about. And look here, I'm already creating something that is coming in image form and then into base 64 here. Okay, and let me go ahead and then get something for the dish that I'm uploading here. And let me see. Okay, I found something here. I'm going to go ahead and drag this one here. I got the base 64 string here. Okay, super. Let's copy this, and I'm going to bring my Postman, okay, which is right here, and I'm going to copy the data here. Okay, super. So now we should be all ready to upload this into our MongoDB through our API. Let's click on send. Yep, there we get it. So this upload was successful. We got an ID here, and we can also go ahead and check if this is actually uploaded or not. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and actually do interesting stuff here. I'll say HTTPS. So I'll actually access it through our Heroku app. Okay, so I'll say Indie Cafe. Is it API-Indie Cafe? Yeah, API-Indie Cafe, and I'm gonna access the dishes, actual dish, my ID, and then the photo. Okay, let's first access the dish here. Okay, we are hopefully gonna get that back. Now, first time around, it's gonna take a little bit of time because obviously the data is just created, it's not cached, so this is going to take a little bit of time. All right, there we go. So we got what we actually inserted into our database. Okay, and I just have to say photo here. Okay, should be good enough. Yeah, there we get it. So let's time this. Actually, first time around it would have taken quite a fair amount of time here. I'm going to say, so it actually this got cached here, so the whole thing came back in 289 milliseconds, because obviously this would have been cached in another intermediate service here. First time around it would have taken a lot more, and the second time around the performance would have been drastically improved. Okay, so I just want to let you know. And the next thing that we want to do is, what we're going to do here now is go back to the VS Code editor that we had here a while ago. Let me go ahead and let me close this. I don't think we need this right now in the near future. Okay, and close this. This is our backend API code, and this is our front-end API code. Okay, so let me go ahead and close some of these things, in fact all of them, and then I'll start the integration aspect of integrating our UI with API. The first thing that we want to do is we want to head over to Google, and in here I'm going to look for Axios. So Axios is a very important NPM library that actually helps us integrate with our APIs from the front end. Okay, so let me say npm Axios. Essentially, it allows us to integrate with our APIs with both the async await syntax and with the callbacks, of course. And there we go. So it's very easy to install as well. And we also have some interesting examples here in terms of getting doing a get call. And I think they would also be using the then and catch method. And also there is an async await syntax here. I'm sure there would be something here as well. Let me look at that actually. Axios async await. Yeah, there it is. So essentially we define a function as async, and then try catch, we use the await syntax here, right? Super. So let's go ahead and install this now. This is gonna be inside of our front-end code. Let's head over to IndyCafe FA, and I'm gonna essentially terminate the front-end in order to actually install this. I prefer this method sometimes, and it gets corrupted, and then we get into all sorts of interesting issues. I'm going to go ahead and install npm i Axios. Super, that just completed. The next thing that we want to do is we want to define a Axios client, which will encompass the URI where our APIs are deployed, and as well as the fact that we have to also give it some initial variables. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is inside of source, I'm going to define a new folder, and that's going to be called util. And inside of that, I'm going to create a new JS file here that's going to be called Axios instance.js. First thing I'm going to do here is Axios from Axios. I'm going to set some defaults here. These are called Axios global settings, and these would be Axios.defaults headers .common, and one of them that I'm going to define as the content type. We would have this going to be sent as part of each request that's going out to our API servers. Okay, and this is going to be application JSON. That's quite standard because we're not using any other content type here. And other thing that I wanted to set the accept header as well. This is going to be defaults headers and common and accent. Okay, all right, and this is going to be application JSON as well. Okay, and then we're going to create a Axios instance, right? We have to export the Axios instance here, so I'll say export constant Axios instance. We're going to be calling Axios class here, and on top of that we'll be calling the create method. Okay, and this is going to have two properties, and one of them is called base URL, and this is going to be the URL where our APIs are defined, and I'm going to come to that in a moment. Okay, and then there are other stuff as well that you can specify, but for now I'm going to essentially configure the base timeout. This is again, this is going to put it as 5000 milliseconds. This is going to be in milliseconds, and essentially that's about it. Okay, so our Axios instance essentially defines our interface to make API calls. We also want to make sure that these are all parameterized in the sense that these are not hard-coded in code. We should be getting them from an external source. Okay, just like the way we did it for .env on the API side, we're going to essentially have the same thing done here as well. We're going to create a .env file here, okay, and that's going to host all our parameters, just like the way we did it for the APIs. Let me collapse the source folder. This has to be at the root of your project, and I'm going to create this .env file. And inside here, all our keys have to be prefixed with React_app, and that's a requirement. If you recall, we actually ended up creating or installing the .env package, but with create React app, that kind of comes baked in, so we don't have to do that explicitly. I'm going to say base URL, that's what we're going to do. Backend server URL, yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Our API, React app API underscore server underscore URL would be appropriate in my opinion. Okay, and then we'll also have a React app API timeout. I think that will also be appropriate, and I'm going to set it to 5000 here. Important to remember, it all has to be prefixed as React_app. For now, I'm going to give it the local URL, and we can essentially change it as we move on. For the purposes of our immediate interest, I'll just say localhost. And I think we deployed it on 7787, if I recall correctly. These can be just plain strings, alright? Super. So in order to access this, these have to be accessed as process.env parameters, just the way we did it in the backend. So how do we go about that? For that, let's go over to our source folder. I'm going to say create a new folder here, and that's going to be called config. All right. And inside that, I'm going to have a new file called config.js. That's going to encapsulate all our configs. Right? Inside of here, I'm going to define API underscore base URL. Yeah, API base URL. Yeah, that would be appropriate. And this would be referencing process.env. And I think we define it as React API server URL. Okay. Actually, just make it base URL. That'd be just standard, because that otherwise it can just go ahead and create a lot of confusion in the end. So I'm going to say just paste it in, alright, and I'll do the similar thing for const timeout. Okay, and that's going to be process.env.react app. Okay, and that's, I think, what we define it as inside of it's going to be React API timeout. Let me go ahead and copy that. Okay, super. And we'll also put a few checks here, and that's going to be if API base URL is not defined, then we have to essentially throw an error here. Okay, I'm going to say throw new error, and that's going to be saying .env is missing the definition of for base URL would be this, and env environment variable. Okay, super. And we will just copy the same thing and replicate for timeout as well. Okay, alright, if timeout is not there, then go here, get this key and paste it in here. Super. And the last thing that we want to do here is we need to export constants here. So I'm going to say export API base URL. Okay, and the timeout as well. Super. And the next thing we want to do here is we want to essentially import these two things, right? I'm going to say timeout, and I think the API base URL. Okay, and that's going to be coming from thing. We had to go a couple of levels above, and into util. Yeah, util, was it in util? I think it was in config. Yeah, it was in config /config. Okay, super. And let's go ahead and use them here. That's gonna be our API base URL here, API underscore base URL, and then the timeout. Okay, super. Our Axios instance client is ready for use, and every time we make an API call, we can essentially make use of this, and any changes can be centralized, so your code changes are minimized or localized to a particular file only. Okay, let's take a pause here. We'll come back and go forward and see how we can use this to call our remote APIs.